Welcome back to the Bleav in Fantasy Football Show. Lindsay Rhodes with you without Michael Fabiano today. He is en route to Los Angeles for the Scott Fish Bowl live draft this weekend, where I will see him and we'll have lots to talk about on the show next week about that experience. But he's missing out because I have a special guest joining me today, and that is a NFL veteran wide receiver who spent 6 years in the league, 4 with Jacksonville, 1 with Houston, 1 with Tampa Bay. You may have had him on your fantasy squads in 2012 when he was the Jaguars leading receiver with 979 yards. He was wide receiver 22 in fantasy. So one of the guys you definitely wanted to have on your roster that year, that's Cecil Shorts. Hi.
Hey, Lindsay, how you doing?
I am doing well. Now you are doing a lot of stuff with the Texans.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about some of that stuff here. The Texans, your jobs. You are doing the Bleav in Texans podcast, which, by the way, I'm happy to say, I think I'm in the majority here when I say I do believe in the Texans.
As you should. As you should. It's on paper, they look really, really good. So we'll see what happens. I think they kicked off training camp today. So it's
Woo!
exciting time. Exciting time.
You picked a good time to be a part of that Texan circle. You know,
I
there were
know,
a number
right?
of years there where, like, I don't know if like covering Texas is necessarily like what you would want to do. But right now, this is the time. This is the time to be
No, for
attached.
sure. Oh, for sure. I mean, you got one of the hottest names in football and CJ Stroud for the right reasons. I mean, he played lights out last year as a rookie, and I expected him to continue that this year. And then the offseason they had this year, Lindsay, oh my gosh, from
I know.
Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, Daniil Hunter. I can go on and on. It's pretty exciting.
In the fantasy world, I've been doing a bunch of fantasy drafts, best ball and whatever, getting ready for the season. And this is an offense that I am definitely targeting. I have so many shares of Texans assets up and down the board. And I want to talk to you certainly about how you would approach that. The wide receiver room is a big question for people in fantasy, is
Yeah.
like which one to target at the value, all that kind of stuff. What will it look like? I also want to talk to you about just the wide receivers in general. This is a position that I mean, I know you know football and you could talk about all of the different position groups, but wide receiver is the position that you played in the NFL. So that's what I want to get your opinion about, whether you have your eye on like a specific sleeper or breakout type guy, or on the
Mhm.
high end if you have favorites. I also want to talk to you about, and maybe we'll start here because this is um, somewhat recent stuff that we've seen. I want to talk to you about Nick Chubb because you actually ended your career in 2016 because of a pretty major knee injury.
Yes,
Um, you tore which ligaments? How many ligaments?
all of them.
All of them. All of the so the whole knee just shot.
Boom. Cow.
That sounds pretty similar to one Browns running back that
Yeah.
we are trying to figure out what to make of right now. What do you make of? I mean, there was the video of him like benching, no, squatting. He was squatting like a ridiculous number of pounds. I don't even have the number in front of me, but he looks like he's doing well. People are excited to see that he is coming back and in a superhuman sort of way. But obviously, we know that that's not necessarily what you're looking for. I mean,
Yeah.
strength is important, but there are a lot of other things that you're looking for when it comes to gauging whether or not the knee is going to be able to hold up in an NFL setting. What are you looking for? What do you make of the news that you've seen surrounding him?
I think the news is good, right? It's a good thing for not only fantasy owners, but if you're a Browns fan as well, right? Or just an AFC North or a football fan. Nick Chubb was one of the best backs in the league the last few years. But strength, like you said, is not the only thing that is needed. I think a lot of it's mental. Like, can he take a hit? Is he worried about hit? His running style is more of the physical running style. Could he run by you? Yes. But he was a bruiser. He was a thick guy. So can he take a hit again? Is he nervous about taking a hit again? Can he hit the hole as hard as he used to? Or is he going to think about, hey, what if somebody hits my knee again? Is my career going to be over? Because he already had a big, I want to say, an injury in college that kind of slowed him down. Maybe his early NFL career. I'm not sure, but I know he had a knee injury sometime in college or in the early in the pros. But that is the biggest thing for me. Mentally, can he do it? When it comes to physical, can he cut again? Is he still explosive? Is he still fast? Is he going to be confident to cut off that knee again? Is he going to be the same guy he was before? I'm not sure. That's the biggest question for me. Thinking about in the fantasy perspective, I would love to have him on my bench. Absolutely. I would love to have him there maybe second half of the season, see how he goes. The offensive line for the Browns is still pretty solid. But I'm just not sure he'll come back the same guy this season, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, we've seen this before, right? Where we're gauging people to come back from their knee injury in these videos. This we always training camp in the off season is when we all get tricked by the flashy plays and just the videos. And then we make a lot out of a short little clip and we say, oh my gosh, this like wide receiver is going to be a great wide receiver because look at that one-handed grab that he made along the sideline. Well, it's like one play, right? Like, can he run a route? Can he
Yeah.
shake a defender? Like, there's so many other things to look for here. So this is the season where we kind of get fooled by like short little clips. I remember last year, and I can't remember if it was with Javonte Williams or with Breece Hall, there were clips of them running and straight line, and that's exciting, but you need to see the lateral also, right? With the
Yes.
knee. And so
Yes.
I feel like that's something I'm looking for with Nick Chubb is like we can have the strength, we can see the straight line, but what do you think? Like, is there a specific drill we should be looking for in training camp when he does get back on the field or something? If he is in fact out there and we do have video of him that would tell you, oh, I think actually he might be okay.
I wouldn't say it's a drill. I just want to see him in live contact or like
Okay.
live practice, right?
Right.
11 on 11 practice. Is he getting a handoff? Is he cutting? Is he moving? How's he look running? Does he drop his shoulder? Does he look timid, right? I want to see those type of clips. If those clips look good, okay, I can feel confident in him. But if he looks timid and the word is he's timid and he's kind of like just getting the ball and running this straight line and not making the cut and kind of shaking the guy or juking the guy, then I'm like, he doesn't look like the old Nick Chubb. I'll be very weary.
The word will never be that he's timid. Cecil,
Oh
you've
no.
been around the NFL long enough to know that the word will only be that he's in the best shape of his life and that
Especially
the
this time of year.
expectations are through the roof, right?
Absolutely. That's like the favorite line. I'm in the best shape of my
Yeah.
life.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Every
it's
offseason.
not the case, but yes.
Yeah. I want to kind of gauge like who you are from a fantasy standpoint. I mentioned the fact that you were a massive fantasy asset,
Yes.
specifically in the year 2012. Is that when fantasy really popped onto your radar when everybody started hitting you up and saying like, hey, thanks for carrying my team?
You know what? At that point in time, I couldn't stand fantasy. Like, I'm just like aggravated. I'm like, leave me alone, right? I'm like, why are you not emailing, but like
Yeah.
to Twitter and social media and text messages? I'm like, leave me alone about this. So I didn't get into fantasy till I retired. So
Yeah.
like 2017, 2018-ish. I'm like, I'm gonna try it out, see what it is. And I just fell in love. Like I just been like last year I was in like in 6 leagues and it's just constantly just Saturday night checking the injury report, seeing who's playing. I'm looking at the ADPs. I'm looking like, okay, who's playing? What rookie's going to make an impact this year? I just love it. Like I literally just love it. Matter of fact, I just got into because normally I'm like in a 10-man PPR league, right?
Uh-huh.
But this year I inherited so I'm in a dynasty league now.
All
And
right.
I inherited a squad, right? So I didn't get to draft my team, but I inherited one.
Yeah.
And I actually I need your expert analysis on this.
Okay.
So I got Puka,
Oh,
right? And a lot of people want Puka in this league.
yeah.
They kind of sent me trades, boom, boom, boom. So I'm like, okay, let me see what my roster looks like, what I got. So I got AJ Brown and I got Puka. But after that, it's not many people that are solid starters, right?
Okay.
So I'm like, what if I traded Puka for Nico Collins and Drake London?
First of all, though, who's going to give you Nico and Drake for anybody, right? Like those two combined, now you're like, okay, I'll give you one of the best wide receivers for two of the best wide
For
receivers.
two, it's 2 for 1. That's my thoughts, right? So I'm like, he's like, I would do it, but
No, someone said yes.
he said yes, but so he's texting me. He's like, yes, I'll do it, but I kind of feel like I'm losing that, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I can give you a a second round pick next year. I was trying to just see what I can do, right?
Yeah.
But then he's like, what about Nico or Drake? And then what's the tight end for this drafted from Georgia? From to the Raiders.
Oh, Bowers,
Brock
Brock Bowers.
Bowers
Okay.
for Bowers. So I'm like, okay, Nico and
Well,
Bowers
wait,
or
how does
Drake
he have
London and
Bowers? Have you
Bowers.
already done your rookie draft?
We already done the rookie draft.
Okay. Caught up.
We
Okay.
already done the rookie draft. So I'm
Okay.
like, okay, I'm in need of a tight end.
Yeah.
Um, so I got like Isaiah Likely, but he doesn't have a lot of targets, right, or a lot of
Yeah.
time because of Mark Andrews.
Uh-huh.
I have Pat. I can't say Pat's last name from the Steelers.
Fryermuth.
Fairmouth. Oh, okay, said it right.
Fryer.
Fairmouth.
Fryer.
Um, Fryermuth.
Mhm.
And then I have Cole Kemet. Is it Kemet from the
Kmet.
Bears?
Kmet.
Kemet from the Bears. So I have decent tight ends, right?
Yeah.
Decent. I just don't know if their usage will be high.
Right. Yeah,
And I'm
Cole
like, well,
especially. Like, Cole was fine last year, but, like, now they have that wide receiver room. Like,
I
I
mean,
wouldn't be
you added
throwing to
some.
Cole all that much.
You see me? You
Yeah.
got Keenan Allen. You got DJ
Mhm.
Moore. You got they drafted a guy,
I'd
Rome.
be like,
So
"He's
I'm like,
open, but let me check the field again."
you feel me? Like I'm like, ugh. So, but Bowers, I mean, the Raiders just drafted a guy second round last year.
Yeah,
So
Michael
I'm like, I
Mayer.
don't know. I just didn't know what to do. So should I
I know.
keep Puka or should I trade him? Like, what's your advice?
So the Bowers thing, I think, is interesting because they took him. They must have taken him for a reason. I thought when Bowers went to the Raiders, I was like, well, that's the worst landing spot because they just
Hmm.
don't know what to make of it because they just
Hmm.
took another tight end last year that we were also pretty excited about. So now,
Right.
unless they're just going to start running tons of two tight and go like, um, not to bring up a bad memory, but like Rob Gronkowski, Aaron Hernandez, Patriot style offense, like if that sort of
Mm.
thing where they're utilizing both of them a lot in the offense, I suppose you could do that, but like I'm a little bit afraid of what I just don't know what to expect. I don't know what the plan is here.
Okay.
So but I do think in this particular trade scenario, um, if they use that draft capital on Bowers, they have to plan on using him at some point.
Correct.
You could say the same thing about Michael Mayer though. So I don't hate that trade. Would it just be Nico and Bowers for Puka?
Yes.
I mean, so you and this actually could transition us to the conversation about the Texans wide receivers. I'm a huge fan of Nico. I think that
Mhm.
Nico is high-end wide receiver one caliber talent. I think he
I agree.
belongs in that conversation with some of the best guys in the league. I think he's maybe on the high end of tier two right now, just
Hmm.
outside of the tier perhaps of Justin Jefferson and those guys, but only because we've seen it. My only concern about Nico is the target distribution because there's so many mouths to feed in that offense. But I am still in the camp of like, I still want Nico as my wide receiver one. I'm still drafting him in that position. And I think that he will get more looks, targets, yards, fantasy points than Diggs at this point in Diggs's career. So I like and Nico's he's an ascending talent,
Yeah.
right? Puka
25.
is
Yeah.
too, but I think that there's reason to wonder if Puka, even though he's super good, I guess I'm kind of contradicting myself right now. I think part of his fantasy production last year was because Cooper was
Cooper.
in and
Yep.
out of the lineup. And so if
Agree.
Cooper Cup is back in the lineup, then what does that do to Puka's fantasy production? And is he a high end wide receiver one caliber talent? Like, is he
Yeah.
as good as Nico? I think I would want Nico in that scenario. I
You,
might be
you'll
wrong.
take you'll take Nico over Drake London.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I know that Drake gets a huge bump this year in terms of quarterback talent, and he's never played with a quarterback that can throw him a catchable
Just
ball
sling it. Yeah.
at a rate that
Yeah.
is, what you're looking for, certainly. But I like Nico's talent, I think, better than Drake's.
Okay.
I'm will and I like I mean, he's paired with CJ, right? And CJ, they're at the front end of
Yes.
I mean, who knows what they could build and how long they could be together and how good they could be for how long. So I want to bet on an offense and
Okay.
an entire environment that I believe in a lot.
Okay.
What do you make of Nico and the Texans wide receiver?
In my humble opinion, I think Nico's the number one receiver in the room. I
Yeah.
just simply do. If I look at the targets shared last year, I Bleav he was like 7.4 when it comes to targets with Tank Dell in the game. Without Tank Dell, he was like 8.2 or something like that targets per game. So his targets didn't get a hit that much when you had another quality receiver in there, right? And I think when you add Stephon Diggs to the mix and what they'll do with him, I think he'll still be the number one guy. Plus, anytime you pay a guy, and you know this, when you pay a guy $80 million, you expect him to perform highly, and perform well. And what they did with Stephon Diggs' contract, they jumbled it up, put some more money in there, made it a 1 year deal. I think they're banking on Nico being the guy. So I can see Nico having a 75 to 80 catch season, around 1,000 or 1,100 yards, and kind of going from there. So for me, I'm extremely high on Nico Collins. I think when it looks at Stephon Diggs, I think he'll still be productive. I just don't think he's the number one guy in the Houston Texans room.
I am with you. That's exactly how I see it. I think I'm more I think my biggest question is how involved can Tank Dell be? Because I do think Steph
Mm,
still gets a lot of balls. I'm a
he
little bit
does.
confused about what happened down the stretch in Buffalo, and I know that they didn't throw the ball as much. But I'm wondering why, and you don't need to comment about this because you're going to be around the team, and this might create some dynamics that
Hmm.
you don't want to create. But I have curiosity about what exactly was going on with Steph and whether or not he might be on the back nine as opposed to like still in his prime. Because why were the Bills willing to let him go without a
Hmm.
clear, unobvious number one wide receiver that they brought in to replace him?
Yeah.
Like they thought that they would still be okay without that in their wide
Yeah.
receiver room. So that's something I'm factoring in just in terms of, fantasy is kind of like you're betting. You're like,
Yeah.
this is the story I think is more likely than the other story. And so for me, that's part of my concern that I'm factoring in with Diggs. And I honestly am not drafting that much Diggs. I'm taking a lot of Nico Collins, and then I'm taking some Tank Dell because I also think that there's a lot of young, like the upside is huge, but there is an argument to be made for the fact that he's probably the wide receiver 3. And so how much high end production can you expect to get out of a wide receiver 3? And will he return value on, like, he's going in drafts right now? He's got an ADP of like mid to late 5th round compared
Oh,
to, yeah, that's high compared to Steph Diggs, who's going at the end of the 3rd, and Nico Collins, who's going at the end of the 2nd. That's, by the way, not for nothing. That's bonkers. You have a wide receiver room with 3 guys that
yeah.
people want in the top 5 rounds
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
fantasy drafts.
I think that speaks volumes too to the quarterback in the room, right? I think people are like, hey,
Well,
CJ,
yeah.
this how I view it though. CJ was so good last year. He was so good at Ohio State. And I'm thinking like, okay, who did he play with at Ohio State? Well, he played with Garrett Wilson. He played with Chris Olave. He played with like 4 or 5, maybe 6 first round receivers.
Mhm.
And he fed them the ball. Like he knows how to keep people happy. He knows how to spread the ball around, not force anything, and still make good targets. So I'm not surprised by that, 'cause I think people Bleav in CJ. It's going to be interesting though with Tank Dell, because I feel like he is more of the Deshaun Jackson type of player where he can
Mhm.
take the top off of defense. He doesn't need 8 targets a game. He can get 3 4 targets and have 80 yards and a touchdown. Like he can be that explosive playmaker. You can still keep him happy where kind of your underneath stuff can go to Diggs, and then possession can go to Nico, something like that. So I think it'll be interesting to see how he's used, but I'm not surprised. You got 2nd round ADP, 3rd round, 5th round. Those guys are going to be used. Those guys are going to make plays. I wouldn't be surprised. This is just me personally. If you see 3,000-yard receivers with the Houston Texans, I'm gonna say it. It's rare. I know, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'm just saying.
It's super rare, but I wouldn't be surprised either. And that's the truth. What does this do to Dalton Schultz?
It hurts him.
Yeah.
It hurts him. I think he's on the back burner. I think when you go through your progression as a quarterback, he has so many weapons on the outside, and those guys are proven to know how to get open. I think he'll be a security blanket, but I don't think he's a top 10 tight end this year. You know what I mean? He's probably in the top 15 range. He'll have a game or two where he hits double digits and be consistently, or he probably have a stretch where he's like, in the mix with some double digit performances when it comes to fantasy
Mhm.
points. But I just don't see him being I hate to say it, not reliable, but a consistent target. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
even think Joe Mixon may be a more fantasy option than Dalton Schultz, just on the check downs alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He'll get his yards when it comes to running the football, and then if nobody's open, I think he'll go to the check down with Joe Mixon maybe more than he goes to Dalton Schultz. And that's not a knock on Dalton. I think Dalton is really good. He's got paid a good contract. I get that. It's just when it comes to fantasy, I'm just not sold. He'll be a liable top 10 guy, maybe top 15ish.
Well, I mean, you're looking at arguably being the 5th option,
Yeah,
in the offense.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's just the math of it is you could be very good, but when the numbers play out that way, that's probably not good for us in fantasy. You mentioned Joe Mixon, and he is going in the mid 4th round right
Okay,
now in
okay.
FFC drafts. So he's in a tier of running backs that's kind of like a second tier here, in the same range as Alvin Kamara and James Cook. Probably, yeah, like after Isaiah Pacheco and Rashad White. And then
Okay.
in that next group of guys, do you think that Joe Mixon, what does his role look like in this offense? Because I think that it's predominantly an offense that's going to be looking to pass the ball frequently for a number of different reasons, but certainly you still need to run the ball. Joe Mixon is a little bit older, from
Yes.
a running back age standpoint. So what do you make of where he is in his career, what he does in this offense, and how frequently they go to him?
As and this, I might sound like I'm contradicting myself, but the offensive coordinator came from San Francisco, and last year they really tried to run the football like that. They want to be able to run the zone scheme, run the football, and run it away. If you look what they do with Christian McCaffrey in
Yeah.
San Fran, he's the number one option, right? He's
Mhm.
the guy, and then you got Kittle and Debo and Ayuk and all those guys, right? So I do know they want to run the football. I do know that. But when you have a guy like CJ, the
Yeah.
best player on your team needs to have the ball in his hands, right?
Yep.
So I think his role would be. That's a good question. I honestly think he'll be used heavily, but I think he'll even rotate a little bit with Damian Pierce. I'll say he even rotates a little bit with Damian Pierce just to try to keep him fresh because he's an older back. Whether you 28 years old, that's old. That's you getting close to 30. You know this, Lindsay. When you get close to that 3-0 mark,
Yeah.
especially as an RB, you
I
start
know.
going downhill, right? And that's how the teams think of you. So I think he'll share the backfield a little bit with Damian. I think Damian struggled last year in that zone system. So coming back this year, hopefully he can figure it out. I expect him to be a kind of the same as he was the last few years with Cincinnati, maybe hovering near 1,000 yards, and then having between 30 and 45 catches out the backfield. But he'll be productive. He'll be good. It'll be interesting how many explosive plays we'll see from a back getting closer to 30. It'd be,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, and in that range, you're probably drafting more like consistent usage as opposed to a
Yes.
guy who's just going to bust it open at all times and be your RB1. Like my guess is he probably won't be RB1 at all this year, on any given week, but he'll
Yeah.
probably be a playable running back consistently. Maybe because of volume. What you're saying about Damian Pierce concerns me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I don't want Damian Pierce as a Joe Mixon manager in the mix. And also, but I'm glad you did bring it up if you think that that's going to be the case, because Damian Pierce is a guy who disappointed in a lot of ways last year. Like the fact
Yeah.
that they kind of pivoted away from him and went to Singletary, and they were like, what else can we do? Who else is here? Like, let's get somebody else on the field. Why didn't it work for Damian Pierce last year? And what might be different this season?
Well, what would be different? He has a year in the system, right? He's the type of back that if you watch him at Florida, if you watch him last year as a rookie, he was just downhill. He's running full speed downhill. Didn't have to read much. Didn't have to be patient. He's just a hard runner, going to knock your head off. If you're in the way, watch out, right? In the zone system, you got to be a little more patient. I would say a lot more patient. If I think of a zone system running back, and we're talking about Texans here, I'm thinking Arian Foster. How patient he was when he got the ball, just smooth as silk. If it was an outside zone, he would just patiently wait for a hole to open, then he attacks it, right? And that takes time for a back like, especially a young back like Damian Pierce, who's never done that before, never had to do it, never was in that scheme, right? So when it comes to him, learning patience, learning how to trust your offensive line and wait for the hole, and learning where to and where your holes will open up at in that type of scheme, right? So I think that's what happened. And I think that's what he needs to work on this offseason. That's one of the things he said in interviews in the end of the year. Like, I didn't know how to be patient. I didn't know how to be a zone scheme running back. So for him to be there, maybe learn from Joe Mixon, because Joe and Cincinnati did some similar things, so maybe he can learn from him. But I think that's what happened big time for him.
Let me throw some wide receiver names at you, and you tell me who you like out of this
Okay.
group.
Okay.
Okay. Front end of fantasy drafts. How do you
Okay.
prioritize this group? CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Ooh.
5 guys.
Top tier. They're all top tier.
Uh-huh.
Um,
If you're in a fantasy draft and you have to choose between them in order, like it's coming to you in different draft slots, How are you doing that? Again, this is not, I'm not asking you to rate the wide receiver necessarily. This
No,
is
no,
in a
no. It's
fantasy
fantasy,
context.
fantasy
So you're
context.
taking
Yes.
all of it into consideration, offensive environment, what you want out of your first round pick in terms of consistency, high end production, all that kind of stuff. Who would you put your money on? CD,
Uh,
Tyreek, Justin, Jamar, Amon-Ra.
I'm putting CD first.
Okay.
Because I know he'll get high usage. I know
Yep.
his quarterback's going to feed him, and I
Yep.
know he's going to be the primary guy in Dallas. Like to me, I think he led the league in catches last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
I expect somewhere to be his usage to be the exact same, like
Yep.
nothing changing too much. Number two would probably be I'm gonna go Jamar Chase. And I say
Okay.
that because Joe Burrow is back and he's back with a vengeance. And when you have Chase is just, I mean, you got so many LSU receivers, but Chase is just special. And he, to me, when Joe Burrow's in there, he's consistent. He's going to get his numbers. He's going to get his targets. He's going to get his yards. He can have a breakout game. He can have a 200-yard game anytime he wants to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I see Burrow having a healthy year, which means Chase would be my number two. So I would draft him
Okay.
there.
Then you've got
Three.
Tyreek, Amon-Ra, Justin.
Ooh. Ooh.
Did you forget about Tyreek?
No, no, no.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I forgot about St. Brown. That's who I
Oh,
forgot about.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
who I forgot about.
Okay. Do you want to?
1,500 yards last year, 10 touchdowns. Can I slide him to two? Can I
Yeah.
slide him to two?
Yeah.
And I'll move
Chase.
Jamar to three.
Okay.
Um, this I'm putting Tyreek four. I just don't expect he's getting closer. Is he 30 yet? He's close to it.
That's a good question. I don't know. Do you
He's
think? Do you
close
think it
to it.
matters with him? Like he's shown
I
no
don't.
signs. Like he is.
I
He is
don't.
an outlier. He's like an Adrian Peterson outlier, but at wide receiver in my
I
brain.
don't. I don't think it matters. But I'm not sold. I'm not sold. He'll have the year he had last year.
He's 30 exactly.
I'm not sold he'll have another year like that. Was incredible. He was in
Yeah.
MVP conversations. Like
Yeah.
that was incredible
I know.
what he was doing last year, right? And I'm not sold to it. I think when it comes to receivers, you have to be dependent on who's giving him the ball. That's why Justin Jefferson is fifth for me. Because I'm not sold on Sam
Okay.
Darnold or JJ McCarthy. Justin Jefferson is going to
Yeah.
get his targets. He's going to ball out. He's amazing. He's probably
Yeah.
the best receiver in the league, right? But when it comes to fantasy, you have to depend on your quarterback. And for me, I'm like, I'm just not sure he'll get catchable balls to be able to make those plays. And then the injuries last year kind of made me a little bit worried too.
The only thing about Justin Jefferson that I would say in that regard, because I think the thought process that you're saying there 100% makes sense. Last year, he played because Kirk Cousins got hurt. And so
You're
he
right.
played with a rotating cast of quarterbacks that I think would fall probably into the same category of like worst case scenario for Sam Darnold, right? Like at
Yeah.
least there's still a best
Yeah.
case scenario for Sam Darnold that is an unknown. We have no idea. He's never been in a good situation in his entire career, right?
Very
Like in
true.
terms
Very
of
true.
offense or wide receivers or coaching or anything like that. So he was in a bad situation, Justin Jefferson, with a lot of his quarterback play, and he still posted 18.6 points per game in those games with those bad quarterbacks. So I think your thought process is 100% right on target. I think he might be the outlier that for whatever reason can still have success in spite of poor quarterback play. And that's kind of goes back to what we were talking about Drake London is I don't know that I've seen the I don't know if it's playmaking ability or something where Drake hasn't been able to be that X factor who goes, fine, you're going to be bad. I'm going to still get mine
Dominate.
somehow.
Yeah.
Like Justin is
Yeah.
in that tier where you're like, it's not good, but he still finds a way to get his, you know? And that's, I think, part of my thing with Drake is like, I mean, there is no doubt he has been in an awful situation in terms of catchable balls and all that kind of stuff. But, and I mean, in my opinion, coaching like that just hasn't prioritized passing the ball in 2023, which was crazy. But, but we just haven't seen that, like, I'm going to do it anyway. We haven't seen him take over a game in that way, regardless of the situation. Justin Jefferson has that kind of talent where I think he can, but I think your logic makes makes total sense here. And
And
I
you know
think
what?
Justin Jefferson in those situations was like wide receiver 5. So if you put him as wide receiver 5, I think that's fair.
And I tell you what, you made a great point because also he missed what 6 or 7 games last year and still
Yeah.
had over 1,000 yards and still
Yeah.
was 18 points a game.
He's
Like he was,
insane.
yeah, he's just incredible. He's
Did you
incredible.
watch Receiver on Netflix? Have you
Oh
seen any of that?
yes, I'm
Okay.
on I'm
Okay.
on episode 7, I think it is.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
love it.
I did a draft, a best ball. Was it a best ball draft? I'm in so many drafts right now because that's what us degenerates do at this time of year. But I took one draft where I went specifically like I'm drafting an all receiver team. Like I have
Oh wow,
Justin, and then I have Devontae, and then I didn't get Amonra, but anyway, I'm just like going down the list of like let's take them all, like grab some Kittle later on. Why not? Just
that's
for
fun.
fun. Let me ask you a question about the like that second tier of wide receiver, because when I get into this group of people, I am a little bit confused about what to do, to be honest with you. Because I think they all kind of have some, I mean, they're all very good, but they have, various questions attached to them, right? So in this group, and I'm gonna leave out at this, I said second tier. This isn't second tier, this is more second round.
Okay.
So AJ, Puka, Garrett, they're all going in round 1. The first,
Mhm.
around the turn, start of the second round is Marvin Harrison. I think I'm going to take him out of this conversation because I think the high end upside, like he's going to go where he's going to go. This group of people, though, Chris Olave, Drake London, Devontae Adams with who knows what at quarterback,
Yeah.
Nico Collins in a 3-room or 3 wide receiver room where the distribution will,
Mhm.
be a little bit more even than last
Yeah.
year.
Hmm.
Michael Pittman, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Waddle. Like in that group, who pops to you when I say that? Is there anyone where you're like, that's the guy I'm going to get if all those guys are on the board?
Ooh, I would say Devontae pops to
Yeah,
me,
me too.
and Jalen Waddle pops.
He does.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jalen Waddle pops. I think going to Devontae, I just know he'll get his targets. And looking at a Gardner Minshew who's there right now,
Hmm.
and probably will win the. I don't know if he'll probably win the job. I don't want to speak, but I'm assuming he's in the lead or he'll have a chance to win the job. He knows how to feed his guys. Like he'll feed his guys, and Devontae just needs somewhere near. I mean, watching wide receiver one, this time he's wide open. He's just not
I
even
know.
close, right?
I know. It's
Just
hard to
put it
watch.
near him. Just put it
He's
near
so
him.
he's so frustrated, but he's such a
Oh my gosh.
professional.
Yes,
It's
yes,
it's a tough
yes,
watch.
yes. But Devontae pops. So if I had to take one of those guys first, like if my pick is up, I'll
Yeah.
probably take Devontae.
Okay.
And then Jalen. I just think the attention goes to Tyreek so much. You have to respect Tyreek that you're leaving Jalen one on one.
Mhm.
So Tua can hit them with those targets. His usage, I think, will be around the same, and he's a big play waiting to happen. He doesn't need 12 targets a game. I mean, if he does, great, right? Because I think he'll get bunch of yards, but he doesn't need 12 targets. He can get 4 or 5 catches and have 90 yards and a touchdown, 85. Or you know what I mean? So I just think Jalen pops out to me. Pittman is just not my type of guy.
In
I
what way?
just
What do you mean?
I feel like Anthony Richardson kind of takes away from Pittman a little bit. I don't know because what Anthony played, what 3 games last year, maybe 4,
Not
if
enough. I'll
that.
tell you that as someone who was real excited about drafting him.
I think his feet is what's going to help him in fantasy, right? I'll
Yes.
probably draft Anthony for sure. But I think his yards on the ground, and his ability in the red zone to run and be big will help him in fantasy. I just don't know if Pittman would be like the main target. I love Josh Downs. I think Josh Downs did some great things last year with a guy like Gardner Minshew, right? Who made some, and Downs is a guy in the middle of the field guy. So he'll get chunks. I don't know what his average is per catch, but he'll get chunks down the field, and Pittman can too. Is just he just not a type of guy I would want to draft in the second round. If he's there third, great. If he comes back around to my snake draft and he's there in the third, fourth, I'll pick him up. But Pittman is just not my type of guy.
They also have that rookie, uh, AD
Oh,
Mitchell
AD
that they
Mitchell from
just
Texas.
drafted.
Yes, second round, right? Like I don't know. I don't know. That's tough. And plus, again, I think AR-15 is more of a athlete right now than a quarterback, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to that, he's going to use his feet. He's going to run, which is great. If you have him in fantasy, it's going to be awesome for you. But I just don't know if he's going to be able to deliver consistently to
consistently.
Pittman, and you
Yeah.
know what I mean. So we'll see.
Yeah. I don't think you're inaccurate there. Let me ask you about the rookie receivers. Outside Marvin Harrison, and I'll take Malik Neighbors off the table also because he kind of looks like an obvious wide receiver one in his room. Outside of that, I'm gonna read you some names and the rounds that you would grab them in right now. So
Okay.
this is a value conversation, right?
Yep.
Always in
Yep.
fantasy. But
Yep.
Lad McConkey is going in the 8th.
Okay.
Brian Thomas Jr. is going in the 9th. I also took Roma Dunze out of this conversation
Yeah. I
for what
see
it's
that.
worth.
Okay.
Okay, so Lad McConkey in the 8th, Brian Thomas Jr. in the 9th, Xavier Worthy in the 9th,
Mm.
Keon Coleman in the 10th, A.D. Mitchell 14th, uh, Xavier Leggett, I think is how you say his last name,
Hmm.
15th, Troy Franklin 15th, Jalen Polk 16th, Patriots, and Jermaine Burton in the 17th.
Where's
Cincy.
Ricky? Where is Ricky Parcell?
Oh,
Is he
Ricky
even?
Pearsall is, hold please, probably right outside the range that I just said, 16th. 16th. He's the
Oh, he's
first one I
16.
left out. So of course, no, actually, you know what? You're right, because I have Jalen Polk. Oh, Jalen Polk fell to the 16th. Now I just pulled up today's numbers.
Where's
So,
Pope?
and
In New
never mind. He
England
was
then.
in the 16th. I apologize.
He's in the
So
16th.
yeah,
Okay.
so Ricky Pearsall is also in the 16th.
Okay. I think Worthy. I would take Worthy higher. I'm taking Xavier Worthy
Okay.
7th or 8th. He
Okay.
will
Okay.
probably be my 1A or 1B with Lad, because I think number one, when you team up, I don't care who it is. When you team up with Patrick Mahomes, today's GOAT,
Yep. Yep.
and you give him speed. Oh my gosh, the
Yeah.
separation that Worthy's able to create, and of course he has to do it against. We got to see it against NFL talent. But I feel like he can be special. I just truly, truly, truly do. I feel like he can be, even in his petite, I would say petite stature. No offense to him, but his petite stature, he can be a big play waiting to happen. And then going to Lad, I don't know any other receiver in LA with the Chargers. But
I
I just don't.
Josh
Uh,
Palmer
is
was
Palmer
like,
still there? Is Palmer still
yeah,
there?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay. I
yeah,
like Palmer. I like
yeah,
Palmer. I do like Palmer, but I think Ladd has a chance to really get a lot of targets, a lot of
yeah.
usage, run tons of routes per game. And I think he will be a reliable guy. He's running 4.3 at the combine. I think he can be a reliable guy for Herbert
Yep.
for years to come. So those two come to mind really, really early.
That's yeah. Reliable is 100%, I think, the right word to use for that situation. Are there any sleepers or like breakout guys that you have your eye on for this
Ooh.
season?
You know
I'll
what?
yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, I was just
I,
gonna tell you mine, just to like
oh,
frame
go.
of
Go for it.
reference, right?
Go for it.
Although I don't want to take one of yours. Like for me, like Dontavian Wicks with the
Oh.
Packers. I think he's in a
Oh.
position in a room where like the talent, we're all like, who's it gonna be? I don't know. I think that the way that he progressed last year and the type of talents that he has, I could see him being a guy who like he's going in like the 14th round of fantasy drafts right now. I could
Mhm.
see him being their wide receiver one this year. Jaden Reed could certainly also be that guy too. I
Yeah.
mean, there are other options there. I like that's a guy that I like in that range where I'm like, I'm gonna draft that a lot this year because I think there is breakout potential. What about you?
Mine would be, see, the Green Bay Packers receiving room is so confusing to me.
I know.
Like you have Reed, you got Watson, who I thought was going to be the guy, and then he kept having hamstring issues, and he'll have a game where it's like 21 points, and then next thing you know it's 2, 3. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay.
Yep.
um, the guy that comes to me, I think he'll be in that range. Maybe he's a little bit higher. Maybe he's a little bit higher. But I'm going to Detroit, and I'm going Jameson Williamson or
Oh,
Jameson Williams. Is it
yeah.
Williams or Williamson?
Williams.
Williams. I think his playmaking ability.
Hmm.
When you look at St. Brown and all the underneath targets he's going to get, he's the tough guy. He's going to take the hits. He's going to catch and run. He's going to get all the targets. But when you look at Jameson
Hmm.
and his speed and what he can do, and he flashed a little bit here and there last year. And I know it's a lot of missed games in the first 2 years with injury and suspension, but he flashed a little bit last year. And the way he can take the top off, that kid can run. That kid can run. So I'm thinking he can have a breakout season this year. Not sure numbers wise what it would be, but I think his explosive plays, 20 yards or more, would be in the double digits for sure. I just think he can make some plays down the field and really surprise some people.
I mean, obviously they're counting on him stepping
They
up,
are.
right?
They
To a
are
degree.
first round.
I uh I kind of am a little bit concerned about why it hasn't clicked in the first 2 years.
Mhm.
Like for him, like it feels like there's a hump he's having a hard time getting over. But certainly on the surface, it looks like the talent is all there. So if it does click and he's able to stay healthy, he's going in the 9th round.
Okay,
So
it's that
so
range.
I think that's a good bet to make in that range. Um all right. Well, I really appreciate this, getting a chance to talk wide receivers with you in particular.
It's
This is a
fun.
fun time of year. Have you done
It is.
any fantasy drafts yet, or are your 6+ leagues yet to kick off?
They're yet to kick off. We usually like to kick them off right getting around the last preseason game. Just
Yeah,
try to get through injuries. Try to get
yeah,
through injuries. Don't want to be stuck with somebody that's out for the year.
yeah. Well, that's how normal people do it.
But I did do a dynasty league. We drafted the rookies last week or so. So I'm be honest with you, I'm always actively looking to be in a league. So I wouldn't mind hopping in and drafting a guy now. I do mock drafts all the time. I actually got I'm actually going a draft position is second in one of my leagues right now. So I'm debating who I'm going to go. My McCaffrey would probably go first.
Yeah,
But should I go with CD? Should I go Tyreek? That's the list of it. Should I go Brees Hall? I am in love with Brees Hall. Oh,
yeah.
it's like my man crush when it comes to fantasy football.
It's
Um,
not a bad one to have. That dude's good. And by the way, if Aaron can stay healthy and look
yeah.
good, and there's so many questions regarding that, obviously, but Garrett Wilson, holy hell, get
Oh,
him a quarterback. Get that man
oh,
some help so we can
please.
see what it could
Yeah,
be.
yeah, I agree. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, Cecil Shorts. Okay, well, you're gonna get a fantasy invitation from me. At the very least, Fabs does best ball drafts. Like we're in a slow draft at all times. Have you done any best ball?
No, I haven't. I'm
Okay.
always willing to learn. I'm very
Best
open.
ball best ball is a perfect format because right now, since you just want to be involved in some drafts and like
Yeah.
getting a feel for what's going on, it's a good I tell people it's the best way to prep for your regular drafts during the
Okay.
regular season. Because mock drafts, if you hop in and you're playing against computers or who knows, people drop out like
Yeah.
after 4 rounds. And then you're like,
Yeah.
this isn't a productive exercise. I need
Auto
to know
pick.
how it's actually going to go through at
Yep.
least 15 rounds, right? And so I sound like a dork. But anyway, people listening to a fantasy
We
football
both
show
do.
will understand. But a best ball draft is you're drafting for upside. You draft a team and then you don't manage your roster. So in the season, it counts and but they're gonna take the top pick. So you're gonna draft a team of like, I forget how many it is, let's say 22 rounds. And then you might draft 3 quarterbacks, let's say. And whoever the top scoring quarterback is that week, that's your quarterback that goes into the roster spot. And then the same, like 3 wide receivers will take the top
Oh.
3 scorers at wide receiver. So it's a
Oh.
little bit different strategically because you are looking for guys who have upside. You don't need them to be consistent on a week in and week out basis. You just need them to pop every once in a while so that you can take their scores. And you're trying to fill out a roster that way. But that means that you don't have to do waivers. You don't do anything. You literally draft your team, you
And
get the
that's it.
draft experience, and then you check back in every once in a while, see how you're doing.
That's fun. I like that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
that'd
we're
be
going to
awesome.
send you an invitation so that you can
Perfect.
draft
Let's
with
do
us.
it. That'd be
Okay,
fun.
perfect. Cecil, really appreciate you. The Bleav in Texans podcast. Everybody should go download that. Like and subscribe. Follow Cecil on the Twitter at cshorts. How do you say this? Because it's 3, but it's like 3 I's. It's like the Roman numeral 3. So like I.
Yeah. So this I. That's all it is. Yeah. Caesar Shorts the third. This I is fine.
There you go. And yeah, go follow him. I've really enjoyed this conversation and really appreciate you.
No problem. Likewise. Appreciate it, Lindsay.
Want to give everybody a quick shout out to Bet Online, who brings us this podcast. It's your number one source for all your summer sports this season, from MLB, golf, all the latest stats, news, and scores available to follow your favorite teams. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you so much for listening to the Bleav Fantasy Football Show presented by BetOnline. Fabs will be back with us again next week talking about our Scott Fishbowl drafts, where I will be crushing him in the draft. That conversation yet to come.